Mr. Ethan, we can't draw any more. The doctor's voice carried a subtle, barely noticeable tremble. If we continue drawing, Miss Clara's body will collapse, and it could even be life-threatening. Ethan held Vivian by his side, without even lifting his eyelids. She won't die. His voice was colder than the operating room's air conditioning. Continue. Draw more to prevent future relapses and avoid trouble. The icy liquid flowed into my body through the infusion tube, but what was colder was the intense pain of the puncture needle piercing into my spine. The pain was dense and overwhelming, as if it was trying to extract my soul from this shell. I struggled to open my eyes, my vision blurry. The live streaming camera was set up not far away, its red indicator light stinging my eyes. The comments scrolled frantically. "Ah, Ethan is so devoted." To cure his fiancée's illness, he even set up a full network live stream. Who is that woman lying on the operating table? Oh, it's the canary that Ethan keeps. The real one is sick, so the substitute donates bone marrow. TSK, do you want this kind of fortune? Don't be jealous, one is willing to hit, the other willing to endure. Maybe she volunteered? To please Ethan, after all. Volunteered? I laughed. The smile tugged at the wound on my lip, a trace of bloody taste spreading in my mouth. Ethan, you really have great tactics. Putting my last shred of dignity under the spotlight, letting millions trample on it. He gently tucked the blanket for Vivian, softly coaxing her, "Vivian, don't be afraid, it'll be over soon." Vivian weakly leaned in his arms, but her gaze passed over his shoulder, provocatively looking at me. That gaze was filled with undisguised flaunting and triumph, as if saying, "Look, Clara, everything of yours is mine." Including the credit for saving him 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the young master of the Fu family was kidnapped, lost too much blood, and was on the brink of death. It was me, this girl with the rare panda blood, who transfused half my blood to pull him back from the gates of hell. But when I woke up, the ward was empty. Later, I learned that Vivian had taken my place. She became the lifesaver Ethan held in his palm, while I remained that orphan struggling in the mud. Until 3 years ago, Ethan found me. I thought he was coming to acknowledge me. But he just pinched my chin, appraising me like merchandise. "You look somewhat like her. Be my woman, and I'll give you everything you want." It turned out I was just a substitute. A substitute he used to dispel loneliness while Vivian studied abroad. Now, the real one is back, and I, the substitute, am having even my last bit of value squeezed out. My consciousness gradually blurred, the strength in my body seemingly drawn out bit by that needle. I seemed to hear Ethan's voice. "Doctor, is it enough?" Enough, Mr. Ethan, any more and it really. Then that's it for now." He finally bestowed a trace of mercy on me. But the next second, I heard him say on the phone, "Vivian's surgery was successful, I'll come accompany you right away." That woman? Just throw her in a regular ward, she won't die. My world plunged completely into darkness. When I woke again, it was the smell of disinfectant that choked me awake. I lay in a narrow single ward without even a window. My body felt like it had been disassembled and reassembled, every inch of bone screaming in pain. The door was pushed open. It wasn't Ethan who entered, but his special assistant, Ryan. Ryan placed a document and an envelope on the bedside table, expressionless. "Miss Clara, this is what the sir asked me to give you. One is the termination agreement, the other is 5 million in compensation." His businesslike tone was as if dispatching an insignificant trouble. "Sir says you've been with him for 3 years, this money is enough for you to live worry-free for the rest of your life." I looked at the agreement, then at the bulging envelope, suddenly finding it incredibly ridiculous. 5 million. Buying half my life. Buying the unborn child in my womb that had already died. Buying the love and dignity I've had trampled to almost nothing over these 3 years. Ethan, you're really generous. Where is he? I asked hoarsely. Sir is accompanying Miss Vivian. Ryan adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. Miss Vivian just finished surgery, her body is weak and needs care. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, saying no more. Yes, his white moonlight is so delicate, how could she be without someone? Unlike me, tough-skinned and hardy, unable to die. Seeing no reaction from me, Ryan added, Miss Clara, sir hopes you'll sign and leave Beijing as soon as possible, not to appear before him and Miss Vivian again. Get out. I said only one word. Ryan's face changed slightly, but in the end, he said nothing and turned to leave. The ward returned to quiet. I propped myself up, sat, and turned on the small TV on the bedside table. The Financial Channel is reporting a news story. Fu Group stock surged today, reportedly influenced by its president Ethan's Extend Life for Love livestream yesterday. Ethan's deeply romantic persona has generated significant commercial value for the company. On the screen, Ethan was in a suit, spirited and vigorous. Beside him, Vivian was like a little bird clinging to him, full of happiness. They became the immortal couple envied by the whole net. And I, the voluntary bone marrow donor tool, didn't even deserve a name. My fingers slowly clenched the bedsheet. Ethan, do you think this is the end? No. The good show is just beginning. I picked up the phone I had thrown aside and dialed a number I hadn't contacted in a long time. The call was quickly answered, and a clear, slightly urgent, familiar voice came from the other end. Clara? You finally contacted me. I took a deep breath, suppressing the choke in my throat. Brother. I'm ready. Half an hour later, the ward door was suddenly pushed open. A tall man rushed in, wearing a well-tailored black suit, his features 7 parts similar to mine, but sharper. It was my brother, Gabriel. Seeing my pale face and weak appearance, his eyes instantly reddened. Clara. He strode to the bedside, wanting to hug me but afraid of hurting me, his outstretched hand stiff in midair. That bastard. Ethan, that bastard. How dare he? Gabriel trembled with anger, punching the wall with a dull thud. Brother, I'm fine. I smiled at him, but the smile was uglier than crying. Like this and you call it fine? Gabriel's voice had a heavy nasal tone. 3 years ago, I shouldn't have agreed to let you go to him. What bullshit deal, was it worth it for me? 3 years ago, the Gu family went bankrupt, father jumped off a building, mother gravely ill. Overnight, we fell from the clouds into the mud. To gather enough for mother's surgery fee, and to let my brother studying abroad finish his studies smoothly, I found Ethan. I exchanged myself for money and a guarantee for Gabriel's stable life abroad. I told him I found a good home, not to worry. This concealment lasted 3 years. Brother, it's all past. I held his hand. Now, we should take back everything that belongs to us. Gabriel looked at the flame igniting in my eyes, stunned, then nodded heavily. Good. All up to you. He wiped the corner of his eye, restoring his usual decisive demeanor. These 3 years, I wasn't idle. I stood firm on Wall Street and founded my own fund company. Ethan's Fu Group, in my eyes, is vulnerable. I've already had lawyers prepare, ready to sue him anytime. I shook my head. No, brother, suing him is too easy on him. I want him ruined and penniless. I want him kneeling before me, repenting everything he's done to me. My voice was light, but carried a bone-chilling cold. Gabriel looked at me, his eyes full of heartache. Good. He gripped my hand tightly. Whatever you want to do, brother will accompany you. I smiled slightly, picking up the termination agreement on the bedside table. The first step starts with this. I had Gabriel find reporters. Not from any famous big newspaper, but a tabloid enthusiastic about digging gossip. Because I knew, the more such media, the faster the spread, and the less boundaries. The next day, a news item quietly fermented online. Shocking. Beijing circle prince's devoted persona collapses? Donating marrow for love was actually forced, 5 million to buy off the substitute's half-life. The news attached photos of the termination agreement and the 5 million check. Although key information was mosaicked, keywords like Beijing Circle Prince and live marrow donation were enough for all netizens to identify. One stone stirred 1,000 waves. The online wind direction began to quietly change. And this was just the beginning. At that moment, Gabriel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and raised his eyebrow at me. "Clara, your second big gift has arrived." He opened the phone, and a news pop-up jumped out. Fu Group President Ethan will hold a press conference tomorrow to officially announce his engagement to Miss Vivian. I laughed. "Brother, help me prepare a dress. Tomorrow, we'll go give them a wedding gift." Ethan's engagement press conference was held at Beijing's most luxurious 7-star hotel. The site was decorated like a fairy tale wonderland, flowers and crystal lamps shining together. Ethan in a custom white suit, appearing even more handsome and tall. Beside him, Vivian in a dreamy wedding dress, her face unable to hide happiness and shyness. They stood on stage, accepting the baptism of all media flashlights. "Ethan, how did you and Miss Vivian come together?" Ethan took the microphone, looking affectionately at Vivian. "My fate with Vivian began 10 years ago. She saved my life, and from then on, I knew she was my only wife in this life." He spoke with genuine emotion, drawing sighs from below the stage. Vivian was moved to tears, leaning in his arms. "Ethan." The live platform's comments were again flooded with immortal love. Yesterday's negative news seemed never to have existed. Ethan's PR team was indeed powerful. "So Ethan," a voice abruptly sounded, "what do you say about the online rumors that you forced a Miss Clara to donate bone marrow for your fiancée and dismissed her with 5 million? The whole venue instantly quieted. All eyes focused on the questioning reporter. Ethan's face darkened, but he quickly restored his smile. "Groundless talk. Clara volunteered, she made a great sacrifice for Vivian's and my happiness. As for the 5 million, it's just my personal token of appreciation, not some buyout fee." He paused, his tone carrying a perfectly placed regret. "I'm very grateful to her, but regretfully, she seems to have some misunderstanding about me. But it's okay, after today's press conference, I'll personally explain to her." What perfect rhetoric. It cleared him completely while making him seem generous and devoted. The reporters below nodded, seemingly convinced. At that moment, another reporter, arranged by my brother, raised his hand. "Ethan, since you say your fate with Miss Vivian began with the life-saving grace 10 years ago, I want to ask. Is Miss Vivian's blood type Rh negative?" This question made Ethan's smile freeze. Vivian's body visibly trembled. "Because according to information we got from inside the hospital," the reporter pressed relentlessly, "Miss Vivian's blood type is the common O type. This doesn't match with Ethan needing panda blood to be saved back then, does it?" The venue erupted. All lenses aimed at the two pale-faced people on stage. Ethan's gaze instantly became sharp as a knife, staring deadly at that reporter. "Who are you? Who told you to ask this?" His voice already carried an irrepressible panic. Before he could erupt, the huge LED screen in the center of the venue, originally looping sweet photos of him and Vivian, suddenly went black. The next second, a clear medical record was projected on the screen. It was my hospitalization record from 10 years ago. Name, Clara. Blood type, Rh negative. The diagnosis record clearly stated, emergency transfusion of 2,000 cubic centimeters for patient with traumatic hemorrhagic shock. The time and place perfectly matched the information from when Ethan was kidnapped and sent to the hospital. The entire venue was dead silent. Everyone was shocked speechless by this earth-shattering twist. And I was sitting with Gabriel in the coffee shop opposite the hotel, appreciating this good show through the huge floor-to-ceiling window. I picked up the coffee in front of me and took a gentle sip. "Ethan. Now, can you still laugh?" The press conference site completely exploded. Flashlights crazily aimed at the pale-faced man and woman on stage. "Ethan. What's going on? Is the real lifesaver Miss Clara? Miss Vivian. Why did you impersonate? This is fraud. Ethan, did you know the truth long ago, so you're deliberately shielding Miss Vivian?" The reporters, like sharks smelling blood, threw sharp questions at Ethan and Vivian. Ethan's mind buzzed, blank. He stared deadly at the medical record on the screen, every word like a red-hot iron branding his heart fiercely. Clara, it was actually her? How could it be her? He suddenly turned to Vivian beside him, his eyes full of shock and disbelief. Vivian, what's going on? Explain clearly. Vivian was already scared out of her wits, trembling like a sieve. I don't know. Ethan, I don't know. She was incoherent, only crying and shaking her head. This isn't real, she forged it. It's that bitch Clara framing me. Even now, she was still denying. The last trace of warmth in Ethan's eyes vanished. He wasn't a fool. He could tell the authenticity of this record at a glance. Moreover, he knew Clara's blood type. When Vivian had blood cancer needing bone marrow transplant, no match in the registry. It was he who thought of Clara also having rare Rh-negative blood, thus the idea to have her donate. But he never thought such a shocking secret was hidden behind. So, the white moonlight he searched for 10 years was wrong from the start. The woman he pampered in his palm for years was a fake. And the one he treated as substitute, wantonly humiliating and trampling for 3 years, was his true lifesaver. This realization was like a huge slap, fiercely smacking his face. Burning pain. In the live room, comments went completely crazy. Holy shit. Century twist. Real versus fake white moonlight in real life? So Ethan forced the real lifesaver to donate marrow to a fake? My worldview is shattered. Vomit. Just thought he was devoted, now just disgusting. Scum man and bitch, lock them. Pity Miss Clara. Replaced for 10 years, and still hurt like this. Ethan, you're not human. Fu Group's PR phones were almost exploded with calls. The stock price fell cliff-like at an unprecedented speed. Security. Security. Ethan finally reacted, roaring at the stage below. Drive all reporters out. Turn off the live. Quick. The site became chaotic. And the instigator was leisurely watching all this. Brother, let's go. I put down the coffee cup and stood up. The good show is over, time to collect some interest. Gabriel smiled indulgently, pulling the chair for me. Today's act was beautiful. Next, what do you plan to do? I looked out the window at the Fu Group's towering building, a cold light flashing in my eyes. Isn't he most valuing his business empire? Then I'll personally destroy it. Ethan went mad. The engagement banquet became a complete farce, he and Vivian became the net's laughingstock. He locked himself in the office, smashing everything smashable. He couldn't figure it out. How did things become like this? He recalled the 3 years with Clara over and over. Her obedience, her endurance, the unconcealable love in her eyes when looking at him, and the occasional sadness. He always thought it was just a canary pleasing her patron and disguising. Now he understood how much unspeakable grievance and disappointment it contained. He took out his phone, frantically dialing the familiar number. Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off. The cold mechanical female voice sent him into the abyss time after time. He couldn't find her. That Clara who wouldn't leave no matter how he treated her had disappeared. He sent people to the apartment I lived in, to every place I might go, all to no avail. She evaporated like from the world. Ethan's anger was gradually replaced by huge panic. He wasn't thinking of apologizing. In his world, there were never the words apology. He just felt Clara was his possession. How dare she, how could she leave without his permission? How dare she deceive him for so long? Yes, deception. He felt Clara deceived him. If she had told the truth earlier, how could he treat her like that? It was all her fault. This twisted and laughable logic supported his last dignity. He must find her, grab her back, make her explain, then stay obediently by his side like before. Just as Ethan was frantic, a bombshell came from the financial market. An overseas fund company named BY was crazily sniping Fu Group's stocks. Methods fast, accurate, ruthless, every move fatal. Fu's stock was already shaky due to the scandal, now worse, evaporating hundreds of billions in a short day. Ethan looked at the eye-piercing green decline line on the board, almost spitting blood in anger. Check for me. Find out what this BY fund is. He roared at the subordinate on the phone. Soon, the message came back. Ethan, found out, the founder of BY Fund is called Gabriel. Gabriel? Ethan felt the name familiar. He seems to be Clara's brother. The subordinate's voice trembled. Ethan's pupils suddenly constricted. Clara's brother? The one he investigated, just an ordinary student studying finance abroad? How did he transform into Wall Street's feared capital tycoon? A huge conspiracy emerged in his mind. All this was designed by the siblings. They came for him. Ethan. The office door was kicked open. Ethan's father, Fu Group's chairman, stormed in angrily. He flung a document at Ethan's face. Look at what you've done. Now the whole board is impeaching you. Because of your mess, how much has the company lost, don't you know? Ethan wiped his face, his gaze sinister. Dad, don't worry, I can handle it. Handle? How? They're at our door. Chairman Fu pointed at his nose, cursing. I tell you, if you can't settle this, don't think of sitting in the president's position again. At that moment, Ethan's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered, and a voice he dreamed of day and night, yet extremely cold, came. Ethan. It was Clara. You finally contacted me. Ethan's voice carried excitement he didn't notice. Clara, where are you? Come back immediately. On the other end, a light laugh came, with endless mockery. Go back? Ethan, have you forgotten our contract is terminated? Clara, don't play tricks. Ethan's tone was full of command and impatience. Stop your brother's little moves immediately, then return to my side. I can pretend nothing happened. On the other end, I almost laughed out loud. Even now, he was still so arrogant. Who did he think he was? The center of the world? Ethan, haven't you woken up? My voice had no warmth. Do you think you're still the Beijing Circle Prince who can summon me at will? You. Forgot to tell you, I interrupted, I'm now the largest shareholder of BY Fund. In other words, I'm your creditor, your enemy. Guess how long it'll take me to make you penniless? On the other end, Ethan's breathing stopped. He never imagined the woman who once moaned under him, at his mercy, would become his most terrifying opponent. You, what do you want? His voice finally trembled. What do I want? I laughed lightly. I want you to taste falling from the clouds into the mud. I want you to try being stepped on, losing all dignity. I want you to pay for everything you've done to me. After saying that, I hung up decisively. Listening to the busy tone, Ethan felt bone-chilling cold for the first time. He was wrong. Gravely wrong. What he provoked wasn't a docile canary, but a long-dormant beast baring its fangs. A few days later, a business cocktail party. Beijing's high society elites gathered. Ethan came too. He needed to stabilize the partners and shareholders restless due to the stock plunge. He held a wine glass, forcing a smile, navigating the crowd. At that moment, the banquet hall door opened. All eyes were instantly drawn. I wore a dazzling red long dress, arm in arm with Gabriel, slowly entering. Slightly curled long hair, red lips like fire. My face had a calm and confident smile, completely different from the woman dying on the operating table days ago. Everyone was stunned. That's Clara? God, how is she here? Isn't she? Who's the man beside her? So handsome, so aura. That's Gabriel of BY Fund. Wall Street's new noble. Discussions rose and fell. Ethan stood in place, staring deadly at me, his eyes complex to the extreme. Shock, anger, unwillingness, and a trace he wouldn't admit, amazement. I passed by him without glancing, as if he was an irrelevant stranger. Gabriel led me directly to the party host, Lee Group's chairman. David, long admired. Gabriel raised his glass. David, flattered, quickly responded, "Mr. Gu is too polite, welcome welcome." "Let me introduce," Gabriel put his arm around my shoulder, tone full of pride, "this is my sister, Clara, also the future heir of our Gu group." Gu group. These words caused another uproar. Everyone knew the Gu family, bankrupt 3 years ago, had now risen again under Gabriel, even more glorious than before. And Clara was no longer the canary needing to depend on a man. She was Gu family's only daughter, a true socialite. This identity change was more direct and resounding than any revenge. I could feel Ethan's burning gaze almost burning through my back. I turned, met his eyes, raised my glass to him. Then, drank it in one go. That gaze was provocation and declaration of war. "Ethan, this is just the appetizer. The real good show is yet to come." The party atmosphere became subtle. Those who once orbited Ethan now subtly leaned towards us. The capital world is that realistic. A few rich second generations who once joked at banquets about what color underwear I wore now held wine glasses, shamelessly approaching. "Miss Clara, long time no see, you look radiant today." "Yes yes, before we had eyes but failed to recognize Mt. Tai, you're magnanimous, don't stoop to our level." Their flattering faces made me sick. I swirled the red wine in my glass, smiled. "You have good memory, still remember me." "Of course, a beauty like Miss Clara, seen once, unforgettable." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow, "I don't quite remember you." "But..." I changed tone, gaze sweeping them, finally landing on Ethan. He stood not far, face gloomy looking here. "I remember you like playing a game," I said smilingly. "Why not play again today?" Those rich second generations were stunned, not understanding. I lifted my chin, pointing at Ethan. "Let's guess what color Ethan's underwear is today?" "Guess right, I'll have BY Fund invest $1 billion in your company." Words fell, the venue dead silent. All eyes focused on Ethan. His face instantly turned liver-colored. What humiliation! I used the way he humiliated me back then, returning it intact. And in such a public occasion. The rich second generations looked at each other, cold sweat flowing. How dare they guess Ethan's underwear color? That's seeking death. But $1 billion's temptation was too great. "What?" I chuckled, "No one dares guess? Or Ethan doesn't dare let us guess?" I walked step by step towards Ethan, the high heels clicking like stepping on his heart. "Ethan, can't play?" I stood before him, height only to his shoulder, but aura completely crushing him. Ethan clenched his fists deadly, nails almost embedding into flesh. He never suffered such utter humiliation. "Clara, don't go too far." He squeezed words through teeth. "Too far?" I leaned close, saying in a voice only we could hear. "Compared to you making me kneel to wipe Vivian's shoes, what is this? Compared to you lip-drawing my marrow for that fake, what is this? Ethan, I told you, this is just the beginning." His body stiffened. Seeing his humiliated and angry eyes, a surge of revenge pleasure rose in me. "Don't dare guess? Then I'll guess for you." I raised my volume for all to hear. "I guess black." After saying, I took a glass of red wine from the waiter's tray nearby, without hesitation, splashing it towards fiancée's pants. Splash. The dark red wine instantly soaked his expensive white trousers. The fabric clung to his legs, vaguely outlining the inside, black contour. The venue erupted in uncontrollable laughter. Ethan, the arrogant Beijing circle prince, now wretched like a drowned rat. He completely collapsed. "Ah!" he roared, like a mad beast, pouncing at me. Ethan's hand didn't touch me before Gabriel kicked him away. He staggered back a few steps, knocking over the nearby champagne tower, glass shattering everywhere, wine flowing, utterly wretched. "Ethan, you want to touch my sister, first ask if I agree." Gabriel protected me behind him, his gaze ice-cold like killing. Security quickly surrounded, controlling Ethan. The party became a complete farce. Ethan struggled like a madman, eyes blood-red glaring at me. "Clara! You mad woman! You'll die badly." Looking at his hysterical appearance, I felt only pitiful and laughable. Mad? I pushed Gabriel's hand aside, walked to him, looking down from above. "You forced me mad yourself." I squatted, meeting his eyes. "Ethan, do you really want to know why I hate you so much?" He didn't speak, just glared deadly. "Because you not only ruined me, but killed our child." My voice was light, yet like a heavy bomb exploding by his ear. Ethan's pupils shrank sharply, face draining of color. What did you say?" "Child?" "Yes, child." I laughed, but tears slid uncontrollably. "When you took Vivian for prenatal check, using my name to show the ultrasound, I was pregnant too. I planned to tell you on your birthday, as a surprise. But you? For that fake, you tied me to the operating table, lived through my marrow. That day, the child was gone. Right on that cold operating table, miscarried. Without even a cry, disappeared." Looking at his increasingly pale, cracking face, I felt no pleasure, only endless sorrow. "Ethan, that was your child. You killed him yourself." Ethan was completely stunned. Like all strength drawn out, he slumped on the ground, eyes vacant. Child, his and Clara's child, gone, killed by his own hand. This realization collapsed him more than all previous humiliations combined. He remembered that day, Clara on the table, face pale as paper. He remembered the doctor saying, "Draw more, life danger." He remembered coldly saying, "Won't die, continue." So, it wasn't just drawing her marrow. It was taking his own flesh and blood's life. No. No. He held his head, letting out beast-like wails. "No. I didn't know. I didn't know." He suddenly looked up at me, eyes full of bloodshot and pleading. "Clara, tell me, this isn't true, you're lying, right?" He crawled over, wanting to grab my hand, but I dodged disgustedly. "Lie to you?" I wiped tears, stood, restoring all coldness. "Ethan, do you think you deserve it? Your so-called love, like you, cheap and laughable." I didn't look at him again, turned, arm in Gabriel's, left the noisy hall under all eyes. Behind, Ethan's desperate, hoarse cries. But all that was irrelevant to me. "Ethan, from the moment you decided to draw my marrow, we were already irreconcilable. That party night was the last straw breaking the camel." Ethan completely broke. The matter of him killing his own child spread like virus in Beijing Circle. Fu's stock plummeted. The board held emergency meeting overnight, dismissing his president position. To save the company, Richard had to cut ties, announcing severance of father-son relation, expelling him from Fu family. Overnight, the lofty Beijing prince became nothing, a rat everyone beats. He tried to find me. Downstairs my company, at my home door, blocking me. He became haggard, bearded, no longer spirited. He knelt before me, slapping himself, crying for forgiveness. "Clara, I was wrong, really wrong. Give me another chance? Let's start over. I love you, Clara, the one I always loved is you." Looking at his pitiful and laughable appearance, my heart had no waves. "Love?" I sneered. "Your love is treating me as substitute, wantonly humiliating? Your love is killing your own child for another woman? Ethan, put away your cheap love, I find it dirty." I bypassed him, walking straight. He hugged my leg from behind, begging bitterly. "Clara, don't go, don't abandon me. I have nothing, only you." I stopped, without turning. "When you chose Vivian, you should have thought of today." "Let go." My voice cold as ice. But he hugged tighter. "I won't. I'll never let go. Clara, forgive me, I'll do anything." "Anything?" I laughed. "Fine. I turned, looking at him. Then go die. If you die, I'll forgive you. Ethan's body stiffened sharply. He looked up, incredulously at me, eyes full of pain. But I just coldly pried his fingers one by one. Then, left without looking back. From that day, Ethan never appeared before me. I heard he went mad. Sent to a mental hospital. Daily holding a pillow, calling baby, crying and laughing alternately. And Vivian got her due. Sued for fraud, imprisoned. Due to bad behavior in prison, repeatedly bullying inmates, finally cornered by a group and had her legs broken. The Fu family, under Gabriel's repeated attacks, finally declared bankruptcy. All grudges settled. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling window on Gu Group's top floor, overlooking the city's night view. Myriad lights, brilliant as stars. Gabriel came from behind, draping a coat on me. Thinking what? I shook my head, leaning on him. Nothing. Just feel, dawn has come. Yes. The nightmare entangling me for years finally ended. Dawn has come. Future life is long. But this time I'll live for myself. Live free, brilliant, more splendid than anyone.